Welcome to another founder-to-founder interview from Gun.io, your source for hiring world-class tech talent. Today, Gun.io's CEO and co-founder Teja Yanamandra sits down with Sabber Ahamed, founder and tech lead of Xoolooloo, a service that helps connect you to other people with similar interests in your local area. Okay, here's Teja.
Well, thank you for joining today. Excited to talk and learn about your role as a data scientist at Bridgestone, learn about how you fell in love with data science and all that stuff. But maybe a good place to start is just tell us about yourself.
Before even I tell about my profession at Bridgestone, I would love to tell my story, how I came here and how I kind of transition my from career, from different subject to the different kind of area. So I originally come from Bangladesh, and as I said you before, I've been living in Tennessee forever, since I come to the USA. So you could say me, I'm not a US citizen, I'm a Tennessee citizen.
Yeah.
So I came to USA back in 2013. So I went to school at the University of Memphis and I completed my PhD in computational geophysics.
Wow.
So my goal was to become a professor or teacher because I love teaching, and still I love teaching, but I ended up in totally different industry setting, but it's a different story. But so during my PhD, my goal was to kind of understand how earthquake happens, what is the physics or mathematics behind this kind of rupture process or failure process when the earthquake happens. So whenever I wanted to study that sort of kind of things, I got introduced machine learning, computational geophysics, and parallel programming, and this is how I can apply all of those tools to understand the earthquake. So this is how I got familiar about the machine learning and artificial intelligence. So after my PhD, I got an offer from the University of Southern California for the postdoctoral kind of things. Then I refused this offer. So because I thought why don't I go to industry first and see the real life implication? Because if I go to industry, then I'll be able to see whatever I'm going to make model or whatever I'm going to make something, I would see the immediate impact to the customer's experience or customer's kind of life, right? And I thought okay, let's give it a try for a little bit. And if I still do not like it, then still I have the chance to go back to the postdoc or academia or something like this. But it turned out that, okay, I like more corporate world and seeing the immediate impact. And then I stayed there in Assyrian and I worked there for 3.5 years as a data scientist. So my job was to kind of develop a machine learning solution to detect real-time fraud, because Assyrian was a insurance company and they get ton of claims every day.
Yeah.
One of the challenge was kind of they wanted to automate the entire fraud detection system from rule-based to the machine learning-based solution. So as a machine learning scientist, my goal was to kind of develop machine learning model that can detect fraud on the fly. That means that's the kind of real life challenge, right? And so that's kind of this is how I kind of transition from computational geophysics to the machine learning world. Then I never kind of look back to this academia and never went back to the earthquake community.
That's cool. So prior to starting the PhD program, did you have any familiarity with some of these tools, or was it the first time?
So never ever, but I was familiar with some sort of programming, because even from my childhood, for some reason I kind of liked programming a lot. When I was a kid, I used to learn Visual Basic. Visual Basic used to be hot language back then in 2005 or 2003, right?
Right.
And then I went ahead and kind of learned but myself, and I built smaller software. So this is what I learned, but I didn't have any idea about machine learning or software engineering.
How long did it take you to feel comfortable wrapping your mind around machine learning tools, just in the context of your PhD program? couple years?
I think it was one of my professor who reached out to me and told me, "Hey, Sabir, would you be interested working with me in a project that requires some sort of machine learning knowledge?" At the time, I had very zero knowledge. Like I didn't have anything other than geophysics. Then I tried to learn like I think it was pretty easy for me to pick up all the kind of mathematics and physics because in geophysics, I got introduced to all the kind of mathematics, equations, and everything. But whenever I got introduced to machine learning, I thought it's going to be hard, but didn't take me that much time because I had some prior knowledge.
Yeah, on the math principles.
On the math principle and like SVD or principal component analysis, I already used those techniques in geophysics, but in different context. So it didn't take that much time to pick up all of these kind of things.
Do you find like the context of solving business problems, let's say in fraud detection, like is it as intellectually engaging for you as, let's say, studying or applying it in the geophysics context, like studying earthquakes?
Absolutely. I think so. There's a huge difference between in corporate problem solving versus in the academic problem solving.
Yep.
So in corporate means industrial problem solving is kind of more of like real life impacts. You have to think a lot of things. But in academia, you don't have to, not necessarily, but you have the option to think about. For example, whenever you detect fraud, you have to think about customer experience. You have to think about companies saving money or companies' revenue. So for every false positive we make, that means we are giving hard time a good customer, right? So we falsely identify that a real customer is a fraudulent customer, which is kind of bad. But in academia, I didn't have to think about this, not necessarily.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of difference. So with this difference, it took me a long time to realize that academic problem versus industrial problem is kind of different. So even though theory behind this, everything is almost the same, so I would apply the exact same algorithm, exact same theory in different places, but context is different.
Do you find that in like a corporate problem solving context, like there's the same level of statistical discipline, or is it different? Like in terms of, let's say, having the right sample size, in terms of like having those principles at play, or are you guys optimizing for maybe something different? Like, hey, let's get to some directional truth faster and let's make a decision quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the corporate or industrial problem solving is totally different because, as I told you before, you have to think a lot of things. So for example, say Asurian problem. Asurian is an insurance company, and that means it's a financial company. That means we have to follow lots of regulation.
Yeah.
And if I even want to make a model based on neural network, I'm not able to do this because neural network is a black box. So I'm not supposed to make any model based on neural network.
Interesting.
Yeah, and not only this, like they want to make a model that can detect fraud on the fly. So that means I'm limited what type of algorithms do I have to make. So that means I'm not gonna use any algorithm that's gonna take a long time to infer. So that means I have to use like a lighter algorithm compared to the heavy algorithms. Even though those heavy algorithms, heavy means like that's going to give you long time to give you the prediction.
Gotcha. So you have to trade maybe some degree of accuracy for speed, especially. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. That's really interesting. And so what brought you to Bridgestone and what's the role like there?
Yeah, so Bridgestone is kind of interesting and totally different domain, like insurance to the insurance, one spectrum, another spectrum is a totally automotive. But as I told you before, underlying principles or underlying machine learning algorithms are almost the same, but you apply the same algorithm in a different domain. So the reason I came to the Bridgestone because I wanted to see the different area, and that's why I kind of thought, okay, I think it's a good opportunity for me to jump right different things.
Nice.
Yeah.
So in between Bridgestone and Asurian, you were at a startup, right?
Yes.
Tell us about that. How was that like?
So this startup actually is my startup.
Okay, awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so I started working during actually back in 2015 when I was a grad student. So being an immigrant and being a non-native English speaker, I found that okay, so there is no any place to find a common ground people. Like for example, I wanted to find somebody who can talk in my way or see the problem in my way because I'm totally different from different culture. And whenever I come to the university, like I see I'm an outlier, even though there are a ton of like people from my society or my culture, but still I feel like I'm one of the teeny tiny person from different society.
Yep.
Kind of hard to match. So this is how I kind of came to the idea of Xoolooloo that I established. So the goal or the idea of Xoolooloo is to find people based on your very niche interest and uncommon hobbies. So, for example, I'm a chess player and I'm also interested in algorithmic trading. How do you find people who has this two kind of interest? Like traditional search engine like Google or Bing, they wouldn't help you to find those people nearby you because the search engine are not meant to find people
Yep.
based on your geography.
Yep.
Neither the traditional social media like Facebook or LinkedIn. I do not put like I'm a mushroom grower or I'm a Ethiopian food lover. I do not put this interest in my LinkedIn profile or Facebook profile,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep. And
Because
even the like dating apps or whatever,
dating, yeah,
they're not set up to have these dimensions exposed and
exactly.
construct the search off of these.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
But the interesting thing is like if you see a data scientist, for example, in a conference, and at the same time you see this, okay, this data scientist happened to be an algorithmic trader, and this data scientist happened to be a chess player, and you get more excited.
Yeah.
So that means you get more excited on your hobbies rather than your primary skill set, right?
Yes.
So that means there is some psychology happens all the time. Like whenever I see people like with common interest, not my primary skill set or primary interest, but my secondary even tertiary interest. So that's kind of tricked me. Okay, so why don't you kind of make a platform and work on it? So this is how I kind of came up with the idea, and this is how I started working in my PhD and continued through Ashurian and Bridgestone.
That's awesome. So how's that going? Are you having fun building it?
Um, honestly, yes and no. So yes means because the problem I think it's not my problem. I see whenever I talk to people, it's the problem across like different demographics. Whenever I talk to the older people, they think it's a very cool because older people are the one they kind of live by themselves alone and they want to find some other people based on their niche interests so that they can talk to each other, they can go meet in person. But whenever I talk to the younger people, they also see the exact same problem, totally different point of view. But exact same people, like whenever they come to this school, they want to find some other students with the same minded or same interest. Not they're lonely, but they want to find the same common ground people.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's fun, but it's not fun that I'm working by myself and I'm thinking that probably I'm just gonna quit on this idea and start something else.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's hard to build a product in a company. It's not easy. What do you like about kind of building your own product, and how is it different maybe from day-to-day life, like in the corporate environment?
That's a pretty good question and interesting because whenever you make your own product, you have the 360 degree freedom to make your own decision, like how you want to pivot or how you want to go further along this road. And not only this, like you have the total control and you can make decision very fast, very quick versus you have to depend on your leaders decision in the corporate world, and you have to work on the project that you are assigned to in the corporate world. And another kind of good thing I enjoy, especially in startup kind of thing, like you get to see the people's feedback, and you can fine tune your product, getting feedback from the customers. But you don't have that luxury in the corporate world because the project is fixed and project has some fixed objective and goal already defined, right? Yeah, there are some startup like project in the corporate world, but still it has to depend on your leadership voice or something, right? So I am a startup person, and I like build products no matter what. Like whenever I get time, I just do this for myself.
That's true. The freedom is awesome,
Yes,
but it's also like you have to be disciplined to say no to things too, right?
absolutely. Yes, yeah. So there's a trade-off all the time. Like
Uh,
there's a trade-off in corporate world, there's a trade-off in startup world. Right?
yeah, totally. Do you think, like, let's say, what do you find more like intellectually engaging? Do you find like solving like big problems at a big company where you're well resourced and you have a team to support you? Do you find that more stimulating, or do you find like being able to be really hands on, develop the product, talking to customers? Like, do you find that stimulating, like at a smaller org or product?
The later.
The latter? Okay, yeah, fair enough. Why?
Yeah. By heart, I believe I'm an entrepreneur since my childhood.
Yeah,
Like even before I come to USA, I had a small organization in Bangladesh that I run myself. So I established this. It was kind of like some financial kind of thing, but I founded it myself, and I had like a couple of users, but I had to leave and come back here. And then when I go to school, I started Xoolooloo. Now, even I joined to Bridgestone, I always ask my boss or leader that, hey, if you have a new project, it's very new, and you want to give it a try, see if this is going to be successful or not, then just assign to me, not the project you already have.
yeah, no, totally. I mean, I feel like if you were to take like the average person, people who immigrate to a new country are definitely like in the top quartile of like risk appetite, right? Just generally speaking. So I feel like, so it's funny. I talked to my parents and they're like, oh, it seems like really risky to like start a business. And I'm like, well, you guys moved to a new country without really speaking the language. Like that's a substantial amount of risk, maybe even more risk than I would take.
Exactly, right.
And so, yeah, it makes sense to me that you feel like the entrepreneurial path is like exciting and that matches like your risk appetite for sure. Um,
Yes.
so you mentioned that you like algorithmic trading. Talk to us about that. Like, what do you like about it, and what are you working on there?
So it's funny, like I'm the people who is interested on everything.
Yep, same.
So algorithmic trading is one of the niche area that I found. Okay, probably down the road I'll be working on this area. So I'm a very stock market fan, and I love to study, and I have investment some stocks, and I try to follow stock market or market trend or these kind of things, and I trade, and I used to be a day trader.
Nice.
And of course I lost ton of money, and I earned ton of money from the day trading. And I feel like, why don't I kind of automate everything? Because now that I got my hands on problem in like manually trading and everything, so I feel like there is a pattern in trading.
Yep.
Like not pattern in kind of like when the market is going to up and down, but there's a pattern in trading, right?
Right.
And machine learning is all about kind of pattern recognition, right? So I thought, like, why don't I kind of use my skill set into a trading problem and see if this is helpful or not. So this is where I like started working on algorithmic trading and building my own algorithms and testing it and real life. I haven't tried my algorithm in real life yet, but still, like, I'm just kind of making algorithm and testing it myself at home. And I have a deep learning GPU workstation at my home, so which is a good advantage. It's a very good thing. So I use it all the time.
So like how does like it work to set up like a robot to trade for you? Like do these trading platforms have like APIs that you can access
Yes.
and then
Oh yeah, of course. Like you have.
interesting. I had no idea because people would talk about it and I never really like oppressed, because my strategy is I just put my money in Vanguard funds and I leave it alone. That's
So algorithmic trading is kind of like the more of like dynamic. Like whenever market change,
yeah,
your algorithm act on it. So for example, say Apple, okay?
yep,
So your favorite stock is Apple, and you wanted to trade on Apple. Then how do you do this? So for example, today Apple announced that they're gonna have some groundbreaking product. So
right,
and of course the market is gonna react very positively, right? And I want to buy right at this time so that my Apple stock gets better. So how do I do this? So you automate the entire kind of thing. So you have your algorithm that listens to your market,
right,
and you have your algorithm that listens to your news kind of thing or portal everything, and your algorithm also knows like past pattern of how Apple can have been working in past like 2 months or last 1 month. So you combine all of this kind of information, and then your algorithm makes a decision. Is it the right time to buy or is it the right time to sell?
right.
So this is all about an algorithm trading.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. I had no idea that you can just access like these trading platforms APIs and make.
Oh yeah. There are ton of platforms out there like Alpaca, Weibo. They just kind of give you access to the
That's
data.
yeah. That's cool. Do you like reading biographies of people or
I used to, but I read a book. So currently, I'm just reading a book. I'm not quite sure if you're seeing this. It's called The Prisoners of Geography. Tim Marshall is a very good writer.
cool? Okay, I'll have to
I
check
love,
it out.
yeah. So this book is about like geography and a country and the power in the entire world politics.
Yeah, that's interesting. I read a book a long time ago called Guns, Germs, and Steel.
Ah,
If you like books on history and different ways to think about like the modern world based on like I don't know path dependence from history, things like that, that might be a good one too. But I will check out this book. Um,
I love this book. Yes.
yeah, that's sweet. The reason why I ask is I wonder if there are like some traders that you follow that you like, um, you know, anything like that.
So yeah, so there is a one guy. He lives in so he's our generation guy, and he's way more better than me. So I usually like his name is Ricky. So he's based in I believe Arizona, somewhere in Arizona. So he's not a big like guy, not like Warren Buffett, but he's the day trader and successful day trader.
Yeah. How much capital do you need to have allocated to day trading to generate sufficient returns to justify the mental time investment in that?
Oh, well, it all depends. So for the early day trader, like for example, if I'm very novice and new here, I wouldn't recommend to invest much. But it all depends on your experience and something. Even experienced day trader will lose a lot of money,
Yeah.
even millions and millions.
Yeah.
So it's all about kind of experimenting on trial and error, like see what does work and what does not work.
Yeah.
Right? And it's all about emotion.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. And managing that emotion, right?
So
Yeah.
you have to manage your emotion. If
Yeah.
you can do this, I think you could be a very good millionaire based on your trading.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. And also, I think it depends on like your day to day job opportunity cost, right? Like if you have a lot of opportunity costs, then you have to risk a lot of capital in day trading to justify like the marginal investment in day trading versus your job. That's something that I think about too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you have a big nut to cover. Yeah. That's cool. What would be your advice for, let's say, fellow data scientists that are looking to, move up in their career and let's say have like this panoply of interests and like because I feel like most data scientists are like math nerds, and if you're a math nerd, you probably are into trading, right? And you're into probably building like your own thing because like you're probably sophisticated and interested in like leveraging your knowledge, right? In those ways. What would be your advice to other data scientists in managing their career versus other passions and professional interests that they may have?
I think that's a pretty good question. Like my one particular advice to the fellow data scientists is to kind of, if you really want to pursue in data science or machine learning, I'd highly recommend you to know the roots of any algorithm that you work. So for example, if I've been interviewing a lot of folks like in my past careers, but I see they lack like underlying foundations, which is kind of because if you have the good foundation, you can make whatever you want.
Right.
Potential is totally endless. So even if you do not have job, at least you can make a lot of money without even job, just because you have the foundation and you can take different problems in different way, right? So my advice is to kind of know better, like whatever you're trying to working on.
Do you mean the foundations as in the math, like the math principles, or the tooling?
Both, like math, because the tool is also important too. Like you have to know the tools because you're going to use it.
Right.
So different tools has the different underlying principles.
Right.
So if you do not know the principles, then you do not actually basically know nothing about anything.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. Where can people find you or your startup or whatever you're working on next on the internet?
So my next journey or my next kind of thing would be probably build startup or build anything based on LLM or machine learning, because I believe this is where my expertise are in. So then why shouldn't I leverage that, right? I like the LLM concept and generative AI. So yeah.
So people can search you on LinkedIn. Nice. Do you have a personal website or portfolio that you want people to go to?
Unfortunately, I don't have any personal website, but LinkedIn is the only one that you can reach out to me.
Awesome. I think the community will really love this one, because I feel like, a lot of people at least tell us like, hey, we want to hear from people who like are working and building something on the side and thinking through and maybe just, have a little bit of experience and pushing their career forward. So this will be a good one. So appreciate it, Sabber. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're listening to the Founder to Founder podcast powered by Gun.io's Frontier Network. We release a new episode every Thursday morning, so be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you stream your music. Please leave us a review and share with your friends. You can follow us online at The Frontier Pod, or drop us a line at team@gun.io to get in touch about hiring world-class tech talent.